Hey guys, my name is Elizabeth and I'm going to be talking to you today about botulism. So what botulism is a toxin caused by Clostridium botulinum and it's a bacilli that is both gram-positive and endospore forming, excuse me. And it's found naturally throughout the world in both soil and untreated waters. So it's not a specific region that gets affected. Unlike some other diseases. So there have been cases throughout the world. There are about 8 types that have been discovered. Only 4 of them can directly affect humans and animals. These include Botox, which I won't go into great detail in this video, but there's also foodborne, infant, and wound botulism. So it's not spread through human-to-human contact, only when you ingest it or inject it. So a bit of background about botulism is that in some 19th century texts, there have been cases of nightshade poisonings that have had been discovered to have actually been botulism poisonings. Um, so they have nightshade and botulism have similar symptoms, including double vision, difficulty breathing. Um, but with the added symptoms of droopy eyelids and paralysis, which can also be linked to nightshade, but how it was described is now known to be botulism. And a lot of these cases were linked to sausage or blood sausage. So in many cases of foodborne illness or foodborne botulism, the food is actually untreated, which for the spores, and so a lot of cattle and pigs eat soil or something that has been in contact with the soil, and so they get the spores, and if it's left untreated and the proper canning or just cleaning techniques, the spores will remain dormant until it gets into your body, which you'll have plenty of oxygen and other just great things to eat off of and cause you to get sick. So a lot of sausage manufacturing and just eating of sausage was forbidden. And in 1820, Justinus Kerner, a German, um, published a article about the symptoms and the basically the whole um, account of what botulism does because of a different sausage poisoning. And John Mueller actually named the disease botulus, which is the Latin word for sausage. So how do you get botulism? There are, as I said before, there are 4 types that you can get botulism. One of them, Botox, is you just have it injected into your face and it just freezes your skin so you're getting it tightened up as I'm trying to do in here. But the ones that greatly affect humans to really bad side effects, or symptoms I'll get into later on, is foodborne, infant, and wound. So foodborne, as the name states, is when a person ingests food or consumes food that has the spores that uh, become dormant, and once you eat it, it just takes over your body. So a lot of the times that foodborne illness happens is because of bad home canning techniques, such as not using the proper canning methods. There's 2 types of canning methods: pressure cooking and boiling method. Both of these should be understood which food you should do it for. So if it's a high acidity fruit or a vegetable, it needs to be pressurized just so that everything just stays contained. And if you're doing a boiling, is for a lower method or low acidity, so it needs to be just boiled so that it gets to a heat level that nothing could possibly live in it, and this includes the botulism toxin. So infant botulism is one of the most common botulism out of these three. It is where an infant of less than 12 months, so not even a year old, consumes spores and gets the same symptoms someone who has gotten foodborne and wound botulism. So it's a very serious concern because oftentimes parents may not know that if you give honey or corn syrup to a child, just because it's something you think, okay, this is safe, it's honey, I eat it all the time, so why can't I give it to my child? Well, actually, there are botulism toxin spores that are dormant in the honey, and infants don't have a mature digestive system that can handle the spores, which is why we as adults or toddlers can have some spores and not feel anything. But if an infant gets honey, they will be greatly affected. The third type is wound botulism, and a lot of times this happens when the spores come in contact with the wound, or if you do drugs and you just inject something or share needles. The most common drug that you can get botulism from is black tar heroin, and this happens so you inject the heroin and then you share it with someone else. And black tar, as it's stated in the name, is literally looks like tar. So don't do it. So a couple of the symptoms is they may occur 8 to 26 hours after eating um, or ingesting or injecting something that is contaminated with the toxins. And symptoms include droopy eyelids, breathing difficulties, difficulty swallowing, double vision, nausea, weakness, and this will lead to paralysis if not treated. And with infants, it's similar, um, but one of the most common ways to tell is if there's a weak cry from the infant, and it's just there's a lot of lost muscle tone. A lot of times, if you go into this, it may be confused with a stroke because a stroke has similar symptoms as well because you'll get that double vision, difficulty breathing, and you're just kind of woozy, and it's going to be very similar, but you have to note that it's also going to be just the droopy eyelids aren't going to be a part of stroke. So there is a treatment for botulism. There is no vaccine because it only occurs when you ingest it, although there have been concerns if it could be potentially turned into a biological weapon and releasing it into the air so then you just inhale it. There was a Japanese terrorist group who tried this back in 1997, I believe, but they were unsuccessful. Um, but so the way to treat botulism is an antitoxin that will basically stop the symptoms in their tracks and just try to get the toxin out of your system. And this, if you're so far along in the symptoms that have led to paralysis, you will be placed on a ventilator, almost like an iron lung, but just something that will help your breathing muscles just begin that contraction, just so your body is getting used to it, because you will lose muscle after this if you're far along. For infants, there is a new antitoxin called botulism immune globulin intravenous. I didn't see much about this new antitoxin, so I don't want to say anything that might be wrong. There have been a couple of outbreaks. There's one in Ohio that happened in 2015, um, as you can see here, and it was caused by a bad batch of potato salad, so beware of the potato. And again, as I said, there is canning techniques that I can go into more if you ask me about it. So ask me about it. And so basically, don't give honey to infants and don't do drugs. Thanks.